Hello, this is Carrie Fell. Welcome to my studio. Welcome to another sketchbook tour. This is my latest completed sketchbook. It is a Pentalic watercolor sketchbook, and I believe it came with a little travel brush that's been taken out, and it's in my palette box right now, my travel palette box. The cool sticker is, I don't know who created it, but I got it when I went to an archery range, and I believe it has something to do with a group of women archers, and it's kind of cool. I like it. So I had the sketchbook with me when I went to the archery range, and so I put it straight on there. Nice piece of art, even if it's not mine. So there's the front page, my website, and I started this on July 31st, 2017, finished it May 14th, 2021. I had multiple sketchbooks on the go, that's why there's such a long gap in there, and I worked in it very sporadically, probably didn't work in it at all for a couple of years before I picked it up and decided to finish it. I'm definitely creating more art in sketchbooks now than I ever did before, so hopefully I won't take that long to finish a sketchbook again. Also, at the beginning, my sketchbook tended to have a lot of practicing things, and then by the end I was putting in full pieces of artwork, full paintings in at the end, so yeah. Let's see how this progressed. So here I started with a spill of coffee, or tea. What happened? Tea stained paper. So I must have dropped some tea on there and then decided to go with it. I got a book where I learned a bit about how watercolor works. I had never worked with it a whole lot, just a bit, and I just wanted to get more comfortable in all the different techniques of watercolor. So I got a book from the library when we first moved to Sydney, and I practiced a bunch of watercolor techniques. I didn't necessarily do things in order either, because this is more recent. So this is blotches of gouache, I think, and then I looked for faces in them and outlined them. Came up with some caricatures. This was my mother's sketchbook. She had only done one page, and this is it. It's a very faint pencil drawing, and yeah, I'm going to leave it as is. I had a wonderful idea of taking the sketchbook to England on our trip with my son in 2017. We flew on the Hekla Aurora, which is this really cool Iceland airplane, and it has the lights of the northern lights flickering in the cabin, and the paint job on the outside of the plane is pretty amazing too. More practicing with washes from the watercolor book. Washes, dabbing for clouds. Trying out some dry brush and stones. And I wrote how I created the effects on each page so that I can recreate it again. Here I was trying out what I'd only heard of in the past, is creating sort of neutral tones by using the three primaries. So I chose these three primaries and then mixed a gray, which is a wonderful sky gray. Some watercolor pencil experiments. This is one of my most recent paintings, even though it was started way back in 2017. I did a pencil drawing of a scene in Harrogate, England, and I did not paint it there. I just left it as a pencil drawing. And then recently, like 3 years later, or 3.5 years later, I decided, okay, got to finish this painting before, so I can count this as finished. And I went in and did the pen work and then the watercolor, and it was difficult having only the pencil lines there. I'm sure I got this building all wrong. Wasn't clear which face was what in this area. So, but I recognize where it is and I like it, even if I got some of the proportions and things off. It's difficult starting a drawing on location and then finishing at home in the studio without proper references or having the scene in front of you. This is the Imperial War Museum in Manchester, and this is done in watercolor pencils. This I did while I was sitting at the waterfront here in Sydney. The cruise ships would come in and dock right in front of me. I would sell my paintings to the passengers, and this is done in watercolor pencil. Very tentative work, you know, very careful lines and tentative coloring. I can see how I've moved along from there. This was done one of the old houses in the Fortress of Louisbourg. These are the little houses across the harbor. So these houses on the other side of the harbor, while I was sitting at the waterfront, I just doodled these little houses. More watercolor pencil. Again, very tentative work. I think I've moved beyond this. So yeah, I was testing out all the different grays, watercolor pencils, graphitones, graphitint, and seeing the type of gray and how deep it goes. So this is a good reference. Some notes as I planned out a art project for an art festival, and I created a large grid, and then the people in the public did each square and created a large picture. So maybe I'll make a video about this process in the future. Yeah, that's a good idea. This is in Bedeck, and I believe it's from a photo though, my photo. And my washes are out of control. I bought a set of gouache, so here I'm swatching out the colors, and I mixed a couple of them to create secondary colors, trying the white gouache over the black. And then I bought a couple of tubes as well that I swatched out. More blotches that I turned into faces. Kind of like this guy. He's interesting. More blotches that haven't been turned into faces. So, do you see any faces in there? I see a couple that I could probably work on. Still buying new supplies. I bought a set of 4 inks, so black and white and silver and gold. So I was trying those out. I was trying diluting them with water and trying the white over the black and the white over the gold and all that. Then I tried wetting it after the fact to see if you know, the black ink was water soluble. It is not. It's an Indian ink. So okay. This one I taped off the page and then just did some blue and green and brown washes across the whole thing, removed the tape, and turned each square into its own separate little landscape. I did that again here with all these different landscapes, and then I tried a big one. My favorite part is how the brush just sort of skipped over the surface and gave me all these white spots left behind, and they look like the sun glinting off the water. More new supplies. This is the Derwent Inktense, and I tried using it as watercolor. It doesn't quite work the same as watercolor. It goes on looking very deep, and it does dry very matte. So the jury's out on that. I've got to use it some more to decide if I like it. I was also at that time practicing making just suggestions of people, just sort of their silhouette as they walked along. So crowd scenes and creating the human figure just with a suggestion. And then I started going through my photo references. I have thousands of photo references that I have in boxes and stacks all over the place. And the photos were taken for a specific reason. Sometimes I grab one and I go, why did I take this photo? And then if I think about it, look carefully, I realize that it needs cropping, and it would be beautiful composition, or a certain bit of light was being captured, and there's something in every photo that is the reason why I took the picture. And so I'm trying to find that in each photo and then paint it. So I have thousands of them that I'm working through. This is in Canmore, Alberta, and there's lots of paths going through the woods, an old train bridge, and the sun comes at sunset, comes from almost the back side, so there's little glints of orange on the mountains there. We went on a hiking trip up in Sunshine Meadows. That would be over 10 years ago, and I have a lot of photos of that trip, and this is one of the mountain lakes up there. This is that same hiking trip, and this is my family walking down the path. What a beautiful day. It was a hot day up in the mountains, and the wildflowers are out, and yeah, just a gorgeous hiking trip. This scene to me needed to be painted in gouache, I thought. So I took out the gouache, and it came together quite quickly and easily, I found. And the hillside of wildflowers. I did something similar in watercolors. So same area, Sunshine Meadows, and some deep shadows and some brighter flowers in the foreground. This is pen and ink and watercolor. In among this time, I also got a fountain pen, and the fountain pen comes with cartridges of ink, and I found out quite quickly that the ink is not waterproof. So when you go over it with watercolor, the ink dissolves and merges with the watercolor, and I think it looks kind of cool with this one. Some of them not so cool, so it depends on the subject matter and the effect you're going for. This is my house, and this is the living quarters in the front. Back here is my studio. There is a separate door just for the studio part at the back here, and the studio runs across the whole back of the house. And it's all mine for doing my creative stuff in there, and I love it. It's just right for me. I remember doing this, sitting in front of the fire, trying to keep warm, watching Peter Sheeler on my big TV on YouTube, and just playing with the Inktense, just following along as he makes his little tiny doodles, and doing a couple of his paintings. I bought a new tube of Sepia Watercolor. When I was doing a lot of color pencil work, Sepia was the pencil that I always ran out of, and I sharpened it down to nothing, would have to go buy another one in my polychromos and also in my Prismacolor sets. Both of them I tend to use the sepia a lot, and it took me a while to realize that I did not have a sepia in watercolor. So I got myself a tube of that and decided to test it out by doing a painting here that relied just on lights and darks, and I'm happy with it. I love sepia, and I think it works really well to do a black and white painting. This is more fountain pen work with my water soluble ink, and it works well if you're doing a water scene, you know, a shoreline crashing waves and sort of a foggy wet scene. That's kind of cool. Not so well with this kind of a scene. This little drawing's worst problem, though, is the fact that it's all the same value. No good lights and darks in there to differentiate what's going on. And another moody scene. It's become moody because of the water soluble ink, which is kind of cool. More mountains in and around Canmore, the train bridge again, and this is the Bow River. Again, I think I put down a wash to start with so that I could get the glow in the sky there. These three mountains are called the Three Sisters, and they're quite the landmark in the Canmore area. Again, the Bow River. And this is a hike through the bush in Elk Island National Park, and I tried to capture it in gouache. I'm not happy with this one. It went through a very ugly stage, and I sat there and I wanted to rip it out, but I thought I'm going to persevere, and I did. I pushed through and came up with this, and it has the glow at the back that I wanted, but gouache is still something that I'm working on and I'm not entirely comfortable with yet. I also bought in this period of time some dip pens and some interesting nibs. This has a big bent nib, and it puts down a lot of ink, and I haven't figured out how to control that yet. So you know, parts of it I really like and parts of it I don't. But this was sort of a foggy, moody day, which I've captured, but the line work, we'll keep working with that pen. This is the gatehouse to an old castle, which no longer exists here, within a block of my house, and I painted this landmark. I have a video showing the making of this painting in the playlist there. So this is the Moxham Castle Gatehouse. These two paintings were done the same way. I think I did this one first. I just put random color down and to sort of as an underpainting, and then painted the local color on top to finish it off. And I learned something from this. I learned that it's fun to put colors where they don't necessarily belong and that you can make it work. I also learned that ultramarine violet is not a good color to put that first wash down. It the granulation is lovely, but it tends to create mud on the page, which is then hard to get rid of when you add other colors. So the initial wash needs to be bright and clear and transparent. But it looks like dusk, I think. This one is the second one I did, and I just put down the lighter colors first, the brighter first wash, and then went over with a localized color afterwards, and I think it was more successful as a result. And then the final painting in my sketchbook is with pen and ink, and I did more of the pen and ink work before I went in with watercolor. So I did a bunch of cross hatching to create the darks so that I wouldn't have to just rely on the paint for that. And I like this one. One little plant glowing in the foreground is kind of fun. I like the sketchbook. The paper is okay. It's a decent quality paper. I like this Pentalic. I'd get another one for sure. I like the size and I like the paper quality. It's a nice heavy paper. And there's nothing in there. And I have since started another sketchbook, which I will show you when I'm done. A big thank you to all my patrons. Thank you for supporting me as I continue to make these videos. If you'd like to become a patron, you can check out the link in the description below. Thank you for watching.